Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at the exterior dimensions of both the 1994 Mazda RX-7 and the 1991 Acura NSX. We're going to be comparing their lengths, their widths, their weights, their wheelbase, and just giving you a good comparison of these two Super JDMs. All right, let's get started. So let's go ahead and talk about their overall length. But let's guess first. All right, now I haven't really compared the numbers yet and we'll do it together. But the RX-7 looks like it's a lot shorter. So let's see if we're right. Okay, so the RX-7's length is 168.5 inches. And the Acura NSX, using Honda's website, the length is 173.4 inches. So the RX-7 is shorter, okay? All right, now we're gonna look at the height, but I can tell you off the top, the NSX looks lower, but the RX-7 is sitting on coilovers and the NSX is already lower. But let's look at their figures. The stock RX-7 would be 48.4 inches and the stock height on an NSX 1991 would be 46. So the NSX is still lower by 2 inches in OEM configuration. All right, so it's all about the width, right? It's all about the rear view. It's all about the booty. So I could tell you already that the NSX looks a little bit wider and that the RX-7 looks a little narrower. So let's go ahead and look at this. The width on the Mazda RX-7 is 68.9 inches and the width on the NSX is 71.3 inches. So we know that the NSX is definitely longer, and it's longer by, you guys are learning how I did math and when I was in school. It was pretty hard for me. All right, so we're looking about 2 inches on the width as well. Okay, everyone, let's talk about wheelbase. So the wheelbase on the RX-7 is 95.5 inches, and the wheelbase on the NSX is going to be 99.6 inches. So it looks like the NSX has 4 inches of wheel space, which makes sense because it's longer. So if you know, the NSX is a mid-engine car, but the RX-7 is a front-engine car. But Mazda was able to achieve the exact same weight distribution as the NSX. And one of the main factors is that the RX-7 has a rotary engine, which weighs a lot less, requires a lot less mechanical parts. And so they were able to achieve that weight balance with the RX-7, which is really cool. So one of our first videos on driver's therapy was seeing if you could fit in an S2000. So I'm about 6 feet, almost 200 pounds, Elise is 5'11", and we were trying to see how we fit in an S2000. We were all dressed up, and a lot of people always have that question. Will I fit in an S2000? Will I fit in an NSX? And will I fit in an RX-7? So let's go ahead and talk about some of the interior dimensions here. So first off, headroom, which is important. One of the initial reviews that Jeremy Clarkson did on the RX-7, because he's like 6'8" or something crazy like that, he had a hard time fitting in there. Now, anyone who's 6'8" is kind of unhuman, so they shouldn't be complaining, but let's look at the figures. All right, so headroom on the RX-7 is 37.6 inches, and headroom in the Acura NSX is 36.3. So the headroom in the RX-7 is more than the NSX. Now, that depends on, I believe, the configuration of if you have the sunroof or the Targa, but based on the brochure and based on Honda's website, it looks like the RX-7 has more headroom. Let's see about legroom. Legroom for the NSX is 44.3 inches, and legroom for the RX-7 is, let's see, I almost read that wrong, is 44.1 inches in the RX-7. So almost identical on legroom. And then shoulder room, I didn't even know there was such thing as a shoulder room. For the NSX, it's 52.5, and for the RX-7, it's 51.8. So the NSX is going to be, let's see, let me double check here, headroom. So it looks like they're both kind of the same dimensions. They fit kind of the same person. But that is interesting. Now we have to see how much they weigh. So the weight on the RX-7 is actually a little bit vague. So they say it weighs anywhere from 2,700 pounds to about 2,800 pounds. And the NSX weighs about 3,000 pounds. So depending on the options you get, like if you got the Bose system on the RX-7 or if you got the CD changer on the NSX, you're gonna be plus or minus, I would say 25 pounds or 50 pounds. But it's safe to say that the RX-7 is a couple of 100 pounds lighter, which makes sense because of the dimensions, but it's really cool to see these numbers on paper. Now let's talk about coefficient drag. I think this is a really cool spec and dimension, or whatever you want to call it. So if you look at the RX-7, it is a very sleek car. You know, the top of the roof kind of reminds me of a Dodge Viper because it's got those humps. And Elise pointed out that the hood is inverse of that, how it, you know, bulges out. It's a very stunning and very smooth car. The NSX is the same way. I would say the NSX has a little bit more, I wouldn't use the word boxy dimensions, but you could definitely see a little bit more sharper lines on it. Now the coefficient drag for the RX-7 is 0.29, which is pretty awesome. And the coefficient drag for the NSX is going to be, drumroll, 0.32. So this has a 0.03 coefficient drag, better coefficient drag than the NSX. Just to give you an example in comparison, a Porsche GT3's coefficient drag is 0.40 and a Lamborghini Huracan, which you know is very sharp, is 0.40 also. So it's about 0.39 for the GT3 RS and 0.4 for the Lamborghini Huracan. For these cars that definitely have similar and way less coefficient drags, that says a lot about 90s engineering. All right, guys, thank you for watching this video. This was fun. This is what we're all about, nerding out. All right, guys, we'll see you soon. Thank you for watching.